Hey everybody, we are back. The summer is over. It's done. I'm Joe Baris, and this is Rebecca Keevan.
Hi.
So what we're going to do today is we're going to go over basically what we thought of the summer, and we're going to give you our top 5 best and top 5 worst of the summer, worst summer movies, that is. So I just kind of like to start off, get a feel for what you actually thought of the summer.
Yeah, I actually thought it ended up being a lackluster season overall.
Yeah.
It started off really strong though with Avengers Endgame.
Mm-hmm.
I think for most moviegoers that was on their most anticipated of the
Yeah.
season. I know it was for me.
You're right, right. No,
right?
me too. Me too. You're right. You're right.
But then in our preview video, we were talking about that there was such a wide variety of movies coming out this summer. We were going to have sequels, we were going to have action flicks and family films that I thought the season had a lot of potential.
Yeah, definitely.
Unfortunately, I don't think I lived up to it overall.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I kind of go back to our original video, and I think we did have a lot of hope for this summer. So it's like it's a little disappointing. You'll see. I don't know about your list, but you'll see with my list that a lot of my favorite films are going to kind of slide into the genres that I enjoy. It's not like anything really broke out and was like this great hit, really, at least for me as a whole. So I think that really supports your claim of like it was pretty mediocre.
Yeah.
There were a couple movies that like I really didn't like, but there were a few there, and we will get to them. So I guess we could just jump into our list.
Yeah.
I'll start. We're gonna start off with our best. We're gonna go from 5 to 1, and then we'll go the worst. We'll go 5 to 1. Now, when we overlap, we're gonna stop. We're gonna not talk about the movie until we reach it on the other person's list, and you'll get there. For me, number 5, best of the summer. I'm gonna start with an early one, Long Shot. Did you end up seeing this?
I did not get to see it, so.
Yeah, I actually saw this when we did our first video. I had already seen it and it made the top 5. This is a movie. It was a struggle to get number 5, really. And there were a few honorable mentions I'd have here, but Long Shot for me came through as making the top 5 because it's funny. You've got some great actors in Charlize Theron. You've got Seth Rogen, and I really thought it isn't a breakout, but I think this movie really revealed how great O'Shea Jackson Jr. can be, and I really hope that he's in a lot of films going forward. His charisma in this movie was just amazing, and it was one of the like sleeper things that I really took out of this film. That's what really put this film over the edge for me, is that you really fall in love with a bunch of characters in the movies, and that definitely made it one of my favorites of the summer. What's your number 5 though?
My number 5 is Fast and Furious presents Hobbs and Shaw.
It makes the
Yes.
list. Beautiful. What'd you think?
Yeah,
Why is it there?
Well, I was kind of like you. There were a couple I was kicking around for number 5, but I enjoyed this film so much.
Yeah,
I know we said in our preview video that we weren't really high on Fate of the Furious and the
Right.
main Fast and Furious franchise.
Right.
So I wanted something that would put the fun back into it,
Yeah,
and for me,
yeah.
this film definitely did.
Yeah.
It took the 2 best characters from Fate of the Furious. You have Jason Statham and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson reprising their roles. And this film gave me exactly what I wanted from the franchise.
Right,
I got the over-the-top stunts that the franchise is known for. I got a whole lot of campy humor.
Yeah.
Just between The Rock's and Jason Statham's chemistry. I loved when they were trading insults with each other.
Yeah.
I loved when they were trying to outdo each other in their action sequences.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed this movie so much. I think it did go a little long.
Sure.
I think you could have trimmed 15 minutes and have been fine, but I wanted a fun action flick this summer, and I got it.
Right, exactly, and I really couldn't have said it better myself. It was an honorable mention for me. Really, this is what the summer film really should be. A lot of fun. Great charismatic actors, a lot of action. I mean, this really fulfilled all of those. For me, number 4, and I don't think it's going to make your list, but Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Quentin Tarantino's latest flick. I'm sure it's not on yours.
It's
right?
not on my list.
Okay, all right. This, I'll fully admit that it's not as good as his other films, but I think that it still had there was a lot of fun to be had with this film. You got great performances from Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt, and Margot Robbie really underratedly great in this, and I think you agree with that.
I do.
I think there's honestly, I've had the most fun with this film. I admit that there are definitely flaws, but all in all, really, I can't say enough. That I had a blast with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So we'll see if he's done after this. I don't think he is, but I definitely had a lot of fun with this one. What's your number 4?
Oh, my number 4 is Spider-Man: Far From Home.
Yeah.
So
that's on my list.
I kind of figured. Yeah, I kind of figured
So
it would be.
we're just gonna table that for now. We'll talk about it. We'll table it. So my number 3 is John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum.
Not on my list, but I did see it.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. This is it's one of my favorite franchises. I mean, you've got the first one's still the best, but this really ramped up some of the action sequences. There were different things involved: motorcycles, horses. It's really one of the best action franchises out there right now, if not, it may be the best as far as gun fu goes. Keanu's great. It's a lot of fun. It's got amazing action sequences, long takes where you could actually see the action. A great addition in Halle Berry. Her sequence was actually, in my opinion, the best sequence of the film, where they incorporate dogs, and it's absolutely fantastic. So this is just another solid film in a great franchise for me.
Yeah, this was actually one of my honorable mentions.
Yeah.
It was fighting Hobbs and Shaw for number 5 on my
Yeah,
list, actually.
yeah.
Speaking of action flicks.
Yeah.
I really liked it. Like you said, there's these long takes. The choreography is exquisite. The fighting choreography is exquisite in these movies.
Right.
For me, it fell a little short just because, as much as I enjoy these films, and I think chapters 2 and 3 are good, even great, they fall short of the first one for me still.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because the novelty's just worn off of it.
Right.
And I thought the climax here just went on a little too long. For my
Okay.
taste.
Yeah.
But I also enjoyed the Halle Berry action sequence
Right.
with the dogs, and I just thought that was the perfect way to bring the whole dog, story
Yes.
into it.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. But what do you have at number 3?
Midsummer.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, you didn't see
I'm sure you figured that, but
So-
no, I did not see it.
Yeah, unfortunately, I fell a little behind on seeing as many horror movies as I would have
Yeah.
liked to,
Yeah.
but I did make it out to see Midsummer. And if you had asked me if this would make my list, I would have said probably not, because I didn't like Ari Aster's first directorial effort,
Okay.
Hereditary.
Right.
So which is a solid horror film, by the way. It is really well made. It left me so unsettled. I wasn't sure that I liked it.
Right.
But Midsummer, I was intrigued by the concept of a folk horror film.
Yeah.
And I ended up seeing it. I went in thinking I was going to hate it, and I ended up loving it. So I think the reason I connected with this film so much is because it feels real, actually.
Yeah.
The characters feel very real in this. It's about a couple who they're having a toxic relationship, and they go with a group of friends to this festival that happens every 90 years in Sweden. And the dialogue between the characters just feels very real. The main character is played by Florence Pugh. She encounters a tragedy at the beginning of the movie, and you feel for her throughout the film. And she's basically undergoing this awakening that her relationship's not that great, but it's set against this bright sunlight of this village where this court is having this festival. So you can tell there's things that are brimming under the surface here.
Right.
And this is different from Hereditary in that it doesn't necessarily sustain the idea of dread throughout. There is dread
Right.
here, but there's a lot of humor that helps break it up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when the shocking things occur, when the gore inevitably occurs, when things go crazy, it just takes you that much more by surprise.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it makes it more terrifying as a result.
Yeah.
So I actually really liked this film. I was happily surprised by it.
I'm glad you said that because I was going to ask you that question. You know, how does it differ from Hereditary? And I agree that actually, you know, Hereditary is a good film, but yeah, there's really nothing to break up. It's just constant dread. The
Yeah.
whole movie is just dread and darkness and drab. So, that actually, you made it sound sort of interesting.
Thank you.
Probably still won't see it, but you know, you did a great job.
Thanks. I'm as surprised as you are that I actually liked it. So.
Yeah. All right. Now we're up to number 2, and let's talk about Spider-Man: Far From
All right.
Home. I have it this high just because I saw it and I knew I really liked it, and when I started writing the review, I realized that I absolutely loved it. You know, to follow up Avengers: Endgame is a Herculean task, and I thought Spider-Man did it beautifully. You've got these characters. You got Tom Holland, who's great. Zendaya, who's amazing. You know, well, she gets to do more in this film, and she's great. There's just a lot of like lovable characters. His best friend is Jacob Batalon. Is that his actor name? There's so many characters that are just great in this, and they bring in Jake Gyllenhaal as well. Can I spoil it?
Well, I guess, yeah.
I feel like
I almost did.
Yeah,
so.
true. As Mysterio, we'll just say that he's great. He kind of plays. Basically, he has a what am I trying to say? A complicated role, if you will.
Yeah.
Whereas he's not really one person. He's very mysterious.
Which makes sense.
Which makes sense. Yeah, and he handles that so well. And then Stay For After the credits. It's not in theaters anymore. Well,
It
actually, the
is,
extended
actually,
cut.
yes.
That's right. There's an extended cut in theaters now. So if you see this theaters, stay after the credits because it's a great after credits scene. Or if you get it, fast forward. It's just from top to bottom. I just absolutely loved it. What do you think?
Oh yeah, this was like the perfect film to come after Endgame.
Yeah.
It really helped to pick up the pieces after that like epic movie,
Right.
with everybody coming back from the snap. I really enjoyed it too. I struggled with where to put this on my list actually. The only reason I don't have it up higher is because I felt like the first half was kind of like this pleasant school trip movie, and it was fun. I was enjoying it.
Yeah.
And then once some important revelations start kicking into gear, it just lifts the movie to another level, and it becomes fantastic from that point on. Like every scene just progressively gets better than the previous scene. One thing I really liked about this movie was how it set up Peter Parker and Spider-Man to play a greater role in the MCU.
Yeah.
And then Sony and Disney have crushed our hearts because they haven't been able to come to an agreement on the profit sharing from the Spider-Man movies. So the last thing I read was a Sony executive saying that the door is closed on
That's what I read yesterday too.
same
Yeah.
here,
So
on Spidey returning to the MCU. So I'm frustrated because I can't see this being anything but a lose-lose for both sides.
correct. I agree.
I know, like, you and I have talked about this. I really like Spider-Man in the MCU.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
They integrated him so well.
Yeah.
And for it to come apart like this after he's been set up to take on a bigger role, I think is heartbreaking.
Oh, it 100% is. It's just, you know, and I don't know the details of, like, I don't think anybody really knows the details of the negotiations or, you know, what sides are demanding or anything. And, you know, I guess I would like to see those details before I assign blame, but I think they're both to blame, really. And what you said, I really couldn't have said it better myself. It really is heartbreaking because, especially after this great film, how well they set up, you know, the future and how it was such a great follow-up to Avengers: Endgame. It's just, like you said, it's heartbreaking.
I'm worried that the fans are going to be the ones to really lose out on
Exactly.
this, you know?
Exactly, which is really the thing that sucks. But Anyway, sorry, went off on a brief brief tangent there, but I don't think there was a way to not talk about that.
I
you
think
know?
we had to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been on a lot of people's minds. It's
Right.
taken over social media. So
Right.
I guess we can look forward to a Spidey Venom film.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's what we have to look forward to.
Great.
Great. I've been, when I heard the news, I screamed, and I was just like, great, now they're just gonna throw him in a film with Venom, and it's just like,
That's our future
oh
right
God,
there. Yeah.
that's so disappointing. I hope that door really isn't completely shut.
I'm hoping it's a public tactic, but we
Exactly.
don't know for sure. That's
Right.
just it. We don't know how the sides are playing each other right now.
Exactly.
We don't know specifics.
Right. So let's try to move past that devastation.
All right. You say so.
If you say so. We won't promise that we won't circle back to that.
Right.
But what is your number 2?
Toy Story 4.
Yeah, that's a great film. I was actually, that was a tough one to keep off. But why do you have it there?
It proved me wrong. I thought that Toy Story 3 wrapped up the series perfectly,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
So when they announced the Toy Story 4, I was pretty skeptical.
Yeah.
I knew I loved these characters. I wanted to see them return. But would it be a good movie? Would it be a good story?
Right.
It absolutely was.
Right.
It was so nice seeing Woody again and Buzz, and they brought back Bo Peep in an empowered role,
Yeah.
which I really appreciated.
Yeah.
And it lived up to what I expected. It was an emotional story. Definitely, reminded me of my childhood.
Yeah.
And it not only continued these characters' stories, but it introduced a bunch of new characters who I wouldn't mind seeing again.
Oh no,
So
you're right.
we've got Forky. We've got
Forky.
Duke Kaboom, who's voiced by Keanu Reeves.
Keanu Reeves.
I would be surprised if this really is the last film in the franchise. If it is,
Right.
that's totally fine.
Sure.
But if they wanted to do another one, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, I'm with you, and because everything you said is absolutely right. I just when I was looking at the films, it was just like which ones would I watch again more, and it just came down to the films that I had on there, and it doesn't take anything away from Toy Story, you know what I mean? Because everything you said is absolutely right. I love Forky. So you're right. There's just some great new characters, and I'm with you. I wouldn't mind seeing a fifth one if they go ahead. Just try it until it fails. Whatever.
Yeah, as
They
long as it's just as good. Yeah,
Yeah.
as long as the quality stays up.
Right.
I think we'd be okay.
Yeah, and like you said, they keep proving us wrong. So, all right. Number 1. Do you want to do like a countdown and then say the movie?
Sure.
Do like a 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, let's do it.
3, 2, 1.
Avengers Endgame.
Yep.
Yep.
I figured that's where we would land. I
Yeah.
think that we said that even in the summer preview. I think we were just like, I would be surprised if anything tops this movie
And it
for
did
us,
it for me.
favorite wise.
Yeah.
Exactly. But starting with you, why is it number 1 for you?
This was Marvel's love letter to the fans
Yeah.
who have stuck with the franchise through 11 years and, at that point, 22 movies. We've
Yeah.
been watching this core group of characters develop on screen,
Right.
and we all have our favorites, and just to see the story wrap up in such an emotional, powerful way was
Yeah.
wonderful.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of crying, there's a lot of laughing
Yeah.
though too, because there was humor, but there was a lot of crying in
That's
this
true.
movie.
That is true.
And I couldn't have asked for a better send-off for some
Oh,
of
no.
these characters.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. And it was just, and you could even see by the box office, like everyone loved this. It's now the highest grossing movie of all time.
Yeah, all right.
So, which is great. I love that it beat Avatar, but anyway. But like you said, these characters and just the way that they handled it. I mean, to me, it was absolutely perfect. I wouldn't have changed a thing. We have fallen in love with these characters for so long, and they just the immense pressure that the Russo brothers had on them to get this right, and I really think they got it right. A great villain in Thanos.
Absolutely.
The core Avengers. A nice send off for some, and an emotional send off for some. Just an absolutely beautiful franchise, and we'll see where it goes from there. But Avengers Endgame takes the summer for us, and
Right
and
from
at the
the
box
start,
office,
yeah.
right from the start. And anything else you want to say, before we move on to our worst?
I guess just to clarify, we obviously couldn't see every movie that
Right,
came out this
exactly.
summer.
True.
So
True.
if you're watching and there's a movie you really liked and you're wondering why it's not on our list, we
Yeah.
probably didn't see
There's a
it.
good chance we didn't see it.
Yeah,
I mean,
we
I saw
caught a lot of movies.
Yeah, I mean, I saw 15. I think you saw maybe a few more.
17.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no, we didn't catch all of them, unfortunately. But yeah, that's a good point. I'm glad you said that.
And there were I know you were saying you had some honorable mentions, I had some honorable mentions.
Right.
So there were other films that we enjoyed, but I think a rewatch factor was apart
Exactly.
from what film would I rather watch compared to another one.
Exactly.
Just criticisms we've had of the films factored into it for me too. So.
Exactly, and I'm glad you brought that up too, because that's rewatchability for me, and also for me, favorite doesn't mean best.
Yeah, I'd like to second that. Yeah.
Right, and maybe that is how it turned out on my list. I haven't really thought about it completely, but
Yeah,
I looked at
same
him. I looked at them as my favorite, not necessarily like the ones you would try to watch again.
And we're not going by box office either.
True,
When we say
true.
favorite, like you said, not necessarily best, but not necessarily dollars either.
Exactly. So let's talk about some of the films that we thought were the worst, or maybe the most mediocre in some cases.
Yeah, that's more where
Yeah.
I'm coming from with this.
Yeah.
For me personally, I didn't see anything that I thought was truly terrible,
Mhm.
but I saw a lot of films that I thought were mediocre. Basically, they underwhelmed me or disappointed me. They didn't meet
Yeah.
my expectations. So that's where my list is coming from. If a movie's on my list, it's not necessarily terrible, it's just that it didn't meet my expectations and it disappointed me.
Right, and I'm sort of all over the board, and I'll explain with each film. But I'll start off with number 5 on my list. I have The Lion King.
So do I.
Okay, it's on the list somewhere.
It's the same number.
Really, number 5.
It's literally
Nice.
the same number.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love it. So let's talk about it. This is the same film as the original, except a half hour longer.
Yeah.
And
not as good.
And not as good. It's the reason. Part of me really wanted to keep it off this list because it was absolutely gorgeous, beautifully
I know,
shot,
yeah.
incredibly animated. It's just I did not have a good time when I went to see this. It was just I just kind of sat there and I was just like, oh, and and we've talked about it. You lose the emotional weight when the characters cannot emote like you can emote with the traditional animation. And I really think this movie took an absolutely huge hit because of that.
Yeah.
There are scenes, Mufasa's death. It didn't hit me. It was weird.
And it's supposed to hit
And it's
you.
supposed to
That's
really
the
hit.
linchpin of the story.
Exactly.
And if you're not feeling that, something's wrong.
Yes, 100%. I think there's some, like I said, there's good that comes out of this. Great animation. I thought that Seth Rogen and Billy Eichner were really good as Timon and Pumbaa, but this one really fell flat, and I just kind of left the theater really emotionless about it. What'd you think?
Yeah, no, I agree with pretty much everything you said. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know why you'd make a shot-for-shot, line-for-line remake if you have the potential to maybe give more emotional weight to it, or
Yeah.
maybe update it in some way that would resonate with the current audience.
Exactly.
And they didn't do that here.
Yeah.
You said that because of the CGI rendering, yeah, it looks gorgeous, but your
Sure.
characters can't emote their
Right.
feelings. That's a huge problem. And
Yeah.
with the exception of Billy Eichner and Seth Rogen, like you said, a lot of the voice performances here were flat.
They were flat. You're right.
Surprisingly
Mhm.
flat.
Yeah.
And that was really disappointing for me. When you hear the cast, including Beyonce,
got
Donald
Donald
Glover,
Glover, yeah.
who
Mhm.
almost everybody loves, right?
Yeah.
And to
Just-
yeah,
Yeah.
like That's how I felt watching the movie, actually.
Yep.
Yeah. So this was just disappointing. I mean, if you went in wanting an exact remake and that's what you wanted and you got, then that's great
Right.
for you. Maybe this is on your personal best list. But for me, I was expecting more and I was let down.
Exactly. It really lost me early. Rafiki wasn't standing on Pride Rock, and it still bothers me. He was sitting Indian style on the edge of the rock, and it was really bothering me. We have a lazy Rafiki. That's the change they decided to make.
Yeah, why incorporate laziness
right,
into it? Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so we've hit your number 5 as well, so we're going to come back to me for number 4, Godzilla King of the Monsters.
Not on my list.
Not on your list. Yeah, this was one of the films we kind of disagreed on, and even even talked about it. Like, I don't want to say it got heated between us, but we
We were okay.
we
though.
were okay.
Yeah.
It's not like we were arguing, but like we were just like. Well, I'm sorry, we weren't like at each other's throats, but we were going. But it was like a back and forth.
Yeah,
It was just
we
like,
were
you know.
all right. But we did question each other about
Exactly.
why the other felt the way they did.
Exactly.
But you have that sometimes.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
Okay.
It's important. You need to have that, otherwise we'd just be agreeing on everything. It'd
Right.
be really boring.
And then we get boring. Yeah.
Right.
So.
For me, this is where our differences lie, and it's basically what we're looking for. And what I was looking for in a Godzilla movie is what they provided in the first film, basically. I did not mind the teasing of the monsters. I liked the payoff at the end. I thought it led to a great payoff. In this film, they decided to just give you all of the monsters all the time, and to me, it just made for an absolute mess of a film. Again, great animation. It looked beautiful. But for me, it fell flat because of that. They just tried to do the blockbuster. We'll just give you more monster, and I just felt they had a lot of great actors in this film that were just doing nothing to me. It wasn't fun, and it's just I was really disappointed with this film. You could defend it now if you if you would like, though.
I actually think our differences from this film stem over our differences from the 2014 Godzilla, which this was
Correct.
a sequel to.
Correct. Yeah.
That film was a slow burn. It waited
Yes.
about an hour until you saw Godzilla, and you only get about 12 minutes of Godzilla in
True.
that film, which you were fine with.
Exactly,
You just really
exactly.
liked the film.
Right.
I actually did like the first film, but my major criticism of it is that we didn't get enough Godzilla. If I'm seeing a movie called Godzilla, I want to
Right.
see Godzilla in it, and
Makes sense.
I felt
Yeah.
the opposite from you for this film. It's called Godzilla, King of Monsters. Well, I got a lot of Godzilla in it. I got Godzilla from
That's
the
true.
first scene, and
Yeah.
there's monsters in it. We got 3 monsters in
Yeah,
this, and
yeah.
I went in wanting to see them fight. That's exactly what I got.
Right.
I wasn't really needing more. Like you said, there are fantastic actors in this, but for me, my priority was to see the monsters go at it, and they did. So I was
Yeah.
a pretty happy camper
Right.
during this film.
Exactly, and I think that the actors are. I think the dialogue's really campy. And it's just a dependent, and that doesn't mean bad. That's not like
No.
a negative connotation, But I think that if you're looking for that, then it's good.
And it is a change from the 2014 one.
Correct.
The tone was very different.
The tone was very different. So basically, if you like the first one, you're probably not going to like the second one as much. And if you didn't like the first one, I think you're gonna.
I like this.
I think you're gonna
Yeah.
enjoy it. So that was kind of a difference for us. But what's number 4 on your list?
Once Upon a Time in
Oh
Hollywood.
no!
Awkward. So I agree with a lot of what you said before. Actually, I think the difference for us is that we kind of perceived it differently.
Yeah, we did.
I mean, I thought the acting in this was amazing.
Mhm.
I feel pretty positive that Leonardo DiCaprio is probably going to get an Academy Award nomination
I
for
think
his
you're right.
acting in this. Thought Brad Pitt and Margot Robbie were just as solid in this. I can't question Quentin Tarantino's production design. The way he brought back the 1960s
Oh, yeah,
was
definitely.
incredible. Just the attention to detail.
You're right.
Um, I guess what it amounts to for me with this film is that although the parts are good, this movie ultimately did not add up to more than the sum of its parts.
Okay. Yeah.
This film felt so loosely structured to me, and I'm gonna compare it to *Inglourious Basterds* here because that film is a masterpiece.
Yeah.
You meet all your characters and you learn the parts of the plots that they're forming, and you know they're eventually going to come together and they move toward it. You know they're going to all end up in the same spot. You may not know what's going to happen when they do, but you know something big's going to happen.
Right.
I just really appreciated the structure in that film.
Yeah.
And I felt like this film was the complete opposite of it. It meandered, it was plotting. There were times when I was wondering where it was going. There were individual sequences that I really appreciated. Anytime Leonardo DiCaprio was like on set, there's the sequence with that little girl. That's a standout sequence.
That little girl is really good too.
She is really good. Yeah, I hope we see her in more stuff.
Yeah.
So there's definitely things I appreciate about this film, but my mind was wandering during it because I didn't know where it was going. This does come together in the third act, but the story takes this hard left, and I think you're going to either go with it or not.
Yep.
And then you, from your point of view, this was a pretty long journey to get there. This movie's about 2 hours, 41 minutes or so.
It is. It's
true.
It's
either going to pay off for you or not.
Right.
And for me, I think if it had been tighter, it would have, but I felt like the payoff didn't really work for me.
Yeah, no, you're right. You know, and that's kind of, when we talked about it, we did say, like, when you were in the theater, you were just like, okay, come on, get to the point, or what, you know. And to me, I was more on the edge of my seat. I was thinking like, oh, where is this going?
I see.
You know, so it's just interesting, like how we kind of saw that differently. But you're absolutely right in what you're saying, and I think that's the direct comparison would definitely be *Inglourious Basterds*, because it's and *Inglourious Basterds* is a much better film than this film. I could definitely agree with that. It's actually my favorite Tarantino film. But like I said, it's kind of fascinating that, you know, I agree with what you're saying, but I
agree with
disagree.
What you're saying about it. Yeah,
exactly.
But,
I would love to see some, you know, a nomination for Leo. We don't know everything that's coming out yet, but you know, he's definitely a top contender at this point. Moving on to number 3, I've got *Yesterday*.
I have that too.
Okay.
Not yet though.
Not yet? All right, we'll tabling *Yesterday*. What do you have at number 3?
I have *Anna*.
Oh, you saw *Anna*?
Yeah, I did. I saw *Anna*.
Oh, that's right. Oh no, we did talk about that. Never mind. But I didn't see it. I didn't see it. So.
Okay, so yeah, I ended up putting this on here because basically this is Luc Besson's latest movie. He directed *Lucy*, which we both hated.
Oof, yeah.
So this was something else from him, and I was, you know, we were hoping for a lot from this because the trailer looked very action-centric.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I didn't think that this brought anything new to the female spy genre. I didn't mind it when I was watching it, but the more I thought about it after, really the action that, if you've seen the trailer, there's this incredible restaurant sequence.
Yeah.
That's the main action sequence in this movie. That's why it was heavily featured in the trailer.
That's what I was afraid of.
Yeah, that we called that out in our in the preview video.
Yep.
There is other action in the movie, but there's like a mediocre car chase. There's a climactic end battle, kind of. There's a lot of headshots, but I just didn't think, for the kind of hype that I saw from the trailer, I didn't think that this movie lived up to it.
Yeah.
Also relies on an awful lot of twists. The film employs this flashback narrative device.
Yeah.
So every time there's a twist, it's like, oh, here's what happened 3 months ago to explain the twist, or here's what happened like 2 years ago to explain the twist, and it keeps on doing it.
Oh man.
So the first few times you see it, you're like, oh, this is interesting, all right, and then it just loses its impact because there's so many twists, and they have to explain all the twists to you.
Oh.
So if this movie's floating around the TV channels, I think it's fine. I think it's worth a watch.
Yeah.
But just in terms of my expectations for it, I don't think, I know it's not in theaters anymore, but I really don't think it was worth the trip to the theater to see it.
That's disappointing. All the things you're saying, I'm just like, oh God, I would have hated that.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So yeah, you're right. That is disappointing. I kind of had a not that it was gonna be great, but like, you know, a little.
Try to hope.
Yeah, exactly.
I know.
Okay, so I've got a number 2. I've got X-Men: Dark Phoenix.
I have it on my list as well.
Okay. All right. So then that makes your number 2
Yesterday, yes.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
All right. Very good. Yeah. I'd like you to touch on this first because I think you. I think when we talked about this, I thought that you had better points than I did. So.
Oh, okay. All right.
Even though we both didn't
Yeah.
really care for it. You know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, first off, I want to establish I'm a huge Beatles fan.
Yes.
I have been since high school.
Yes.
I recently saw Ringo Starr
Yes,
at the
true.
50th anniversary of Woodstock at Bethel Woods.
Yes,
So I
it
can
was
back
awesome.
this up.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a good time. I can back this up. But Danny Boyle's fantasy about a world without the Beatles, it left a sour note for me here. The first half I actually did think was pretty solid.
Mhm.
I liked the song choices. I mean, how can you go wrong with the Beatles songs?
Right. Right.
It was pretty funny
Yeah.
too
yeah.
at first. I really thought the lead performance by Himesh Patel was great.
Yeah, he was
He's
great.
very engaging.
Mhm.
Lily James is adorable, so I like
Yeah.
her in everything she's in.
Yeah.
But as the film goes on, basically once you get to the second half, the whole film just
Oh
unravels.
yeah. Falls apart.
Yeah, the story is actually pretty weak. There's never a reason given for why the Beatles and other things
Oh,
vanished
yeah.
from the world,
Yeah.
which was very strange.
Yeah.
The movie becomes about the pitfalls of success, and to me, that's not tied directly to the Beatles. I felt like you really could have subbed in any band if that's the way you're going to
That's
go to
true,
tell
yeah.
this story. So
You're
that
right.
was upsetting to me.
Yeah.
I had problems with the central romance. I'm
too.
not sure how much we can dissect that
Right,
on
true.
here, but the movie very clearly wants for you to root for them, and I'm not sure I was.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's some pretty big,
Yeah.
like one character does something out of character, and I was just
Right.
very confused. So
Exactly.
that was a problem. And then in the third act, there's a choice that is made. The movie makes this choice, and you're either gonna go along with this or not.
Right.
I found it horrifying.
It's horrifying.
So once that happened, my mind was set up, and I was just somewhat traumatized after seeing this movie.
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. I agree that choice. Just that was the point where I jumped off.
Yeah.
I jumped off and it just because
Same
it
here.
just makes you ask so many more questions and it's an absolute mess. It's when you're taking on the Beatles. Like, you better have a film, It's
back
like,
that up, yeah.
you can't just like take the Beatles and say, oh, okay, we'll just, and it just felt like they took the Beatles and they said, okay, we're gonna throw them in this film. We have this idea, and they did not expand upon it at all.
Right.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
could
it's
have been
just-
any band, honestly.
Right. Yeah. So it just. It was so disappointing because I really did have high hopes for this film. Danny Boyle's a great director. It's like you said. There's the lead actor is very good. I was on board with this film for maybe the first half hour or something.
Yeah.
But like we said, then I realized that they didn't have anywhere to go with it, and
No, there's no depth.
Right. Exactly. There's no depth. Like you said, the romance is bad. It's just they have no story here, and it is so disappointing. Just go listen to the Beatles instead of seeing this
Save
movie.
yourself, yeah.
because that was the only part I enjoyed about it. It was listening to the music. Okay, so that was your number 2. So
Yep.
we go to my number 1, which is The Kitchen. This movie was deceptively awful. I was about halfway through it, and I asked myself, "What is this movie about?" It was just so. If you're talking about, speaking of like meandering and just it tries to sell you on these women taking charge, and but they never show you like what they do to take charge. There's a lot of walking on sidewalks
There
and
is,
talking
yeah.
in rooms and which is a shame, and this is really why it's number one on my list, is because you got the talent of a Melissa McCarthy, a Tiffany Haddish, and Elizabeth Moss. These three great actresses that we have. You did nothing with them. This movie is so incredibly boring, and it goes nowhere, and then it throws in this third act twist that didn't even need to be there at all. And I was that was the jumping point for me as well. Speaking of jumping points, I was just like, okay, this is terrible. It was amazing to me that they got so much talent for this absolutely god awful film. And I say deceptively because like you're in it and you're just like, oh, it's not terrible. But then like you get out and you think about it and you're just like, wait a minute, like what really happened in that movie? And the answer is nothing. And I have no idea why it's not under top 5 worst.
That's because I actually liked it, although I completely understand where you're coming from with your points. Because we talked about this too.
True.
Yeah, I know, I completely understand where Joe's coming from, but yet I just ended up getting a lot more out of this movie.
Right.
Ultimately, I think the 3 lead performances won me over. I felt like each woman had a really pivotal part to play in this. These are about 3 women who take over their husbands' rackets after the men are arrested by the FBI. And you got Melissa McCarthy as the brains of the operation. You got Tiffany Haddish as like the voice, the mouthpiece of the operation, which this was my first time seeing her in a dramatic role. And I actually really liked her in it. I thought she was tough the way she needed to be. But she married into a mob family who never accepted her, so I actually felt that that struggle. For me, more to her character came through. Maybe it was because of her performance. I'm not sure the script did her any favors, but I think she brought more to it that I caught on to.
Right.
And Elizabeth Moss actually plays the most sympathetic of the characters as an abused housewife, but she becomes the muscle of the group by becoming a hit woman herself, which I didn't expect going into this. So that was kind of like a pleasant surprise for me. And some of what she does it's shocking, but she still manages to keep you on her side.
Sure.
So yeah, I actually. You said this is deceptively awful, and I don't disagree with you there because there's some critical errors in the filmmaking here. As much as the performances won me over, the staging's not great. There's a lot of walking around. In scenes that involve more people than just the 3 main actresses, like it's not people really having a conversation like what we're doing. It's people taking turns speaking.
That's true.
Doesn't help. That's not good for a movie.
Yeah.
So there's definitely critical errors with the filmmaking here, but it ended up winning me over in spite of myself. So.
I got you. It's, that's the thing. Like you did a great job defending. How you felt about the film. It was just like I just cannot get on board.
Hey, that's why
with any of it. Yeah, exactly. So your number 1. X-Men Dark Phoenix.
Yep. This movie was frustrating, and we were worried about it going in due to the marketing. There was a pretty big spoiler that the marketing let you know about in advance.
Right.
And you did a great job of dissecting, honestly, why that didn't even work in the film.
Yeah.
So check out Joe's review of Dark Phoenix if you haven't read it. But for me, I love the X-Men movies. The 2000 X-Men movie actually is what got me to start loving comic book movies. I've been a huge fan of them ever since.
Yeah.
And to see such a great franchise, it just ended. It didn't end on a whimper or, a high note. It just ended. And that was so hard to see here. This is the second time, too, that the X-Men movies tried to tackle the Dark Phoenix saga. And it bungled it both times.
Yeah.
So, people, what's going on here,
Exactly.
That was pretty hard to see. I do think there's good performances in this. I mean, you can't go wrong with Michael Fassbender, James McAvoy. I also liked Sophie Turner in this, although her accent does slip through a lot. But I honestly thought she was trying to give this what she could. But ultimately, this was underwhelming. The action wasn't very good until the third act. They reshot that apparently, and you could tell because that's when the life actually comes into the film at that point.
Right.
But it's almost too late because you've been just soldiering on through this movie.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
it's disappointing for such an iconic franchise to end this way. So ultimately, that's why I decided to put this number 1 on my list. This should have
Yeah.
been a lot better.
That's true. And you make a great point in that. I think that the only reason that this is just number 2 and not number 1 for me is the fact that, like, at least there were, like, a couple things that were okay about this film. And they were basically the things that you said, except I didn't think Sophie Turner was that great.
I got you, Sophie. It's okay. Game of Thrones forever.
It's basically like you said, and the real disappointing part is that Logan was so good.
I know.
And that could have been the end.
Yeah.
That could have been the end
Maybe it
of
should have
your
been.
X-Men franchise. Yeah, and instead we have this just absolute mess of a film, and they took Jessica Chastain, my favorite actors in the
wasted
business,
her.
and they did nothing. She was a robot. She was basically a robot. It's so sad. I'm gonna cry. No.
I'm gonna let you cry.
Yeah.
Get it out.
Pause. 7 minutes for crying. Yeah, it really bothers me that this is how they decided to end the series. I understand that they were in a bad spot with Fox being, bought out, but there's nothing. Well, I don't want to say nothing, but like it's just this absolutely fell off the rails when you're attacking a story for the second time, and you actually, well, I don't know, you don't agree with this, but I think they actually made it worse than the first one.
Yeah, I think this is a little better than The Last Stand.
Right,
yeah.
but
marginally.
I was gonna say even still, either way, they're both bad movies. So just the way they handled it and everything, it was bad, and it was so disappointing for a franchise to end in that way.
Yeah.
We'll see where it comes. But all right, so just to recap, the best films for me in the summer: number 5, Long Shot; number 4, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood; number 3, John Wick Chapter 3; number 2, Spider-Man: Far From Home; number 1, Avengers: Endgame. Your best, just to recap.
Yeah, for me, number 5 best was Fast and Furious Presents Hobbs and Shaw. Number 4, Spider-Man: Far From Home. Number 3, Midsummer. Number 2, Toy Story 4, and number 1, Avengers: Endgame.
Avengers: Endgame. The worst to count down. Number 5, The Lion King. Number 4, Godzilla: King of the Monsters. Number 3, Yesterday. Number 2, Dark Phoenix. Number 1, The Kitchen.
Yep, and my worst, number 5, The Lion King. Number 4, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Yeah, come Oscar season, this will look great. Number 3, Anna. Number 2, Yesterday. And number 1, X-Men: Dark Phoenix.
I just want to be clear that she put a Quentin Tarantino film on her top 5 worst films of the summer, and The Kitchen lives on in mediocrity. I'm just kidding. But seriously, no. I guess to sort of wrap this up, were there any of the films maybe in the middle? Like, were there any like surprises to you? Anything that kind of, any films that you saw that we didn't mention that were either good, disappointing, anything else you want to talk about summer-wise?
Let's see here. I actually thought Angel Has Fallen was a good time. Definitely fell in the middle. If you are a fan of the Olympus Has Fallen franchise, which I am, I've seen all of them, this wasn't as good as the first one, but it was much better than the second one, London Has Fallen.
Right.
So if you just need a good escape movie, a good big dumb action movie,
Yeah.
it fits the bill.
Yeah.
So that's on my mind right now.
Yeah, yeah.
And I actually did like Godzilla King of Monsters,
Right,
I said
right.
before. So if you want
Yeah.
your monster fighting fix, honestly, if you're willing to just have fun with it, go for it.
Right, exactly. Basically, mine are like the ones you said actually had on your list: Toy Story 4, Fast and Furious presents Hobbs and Shaw. Other things, I was actually surprised Rocket Man didn't make my top 5. I thought that was gonna, and it to me it is a good film. It just wasn't. It wouldn't be among my favorites. And
Right.
I was actually surprised about that.
Oh.
I saw Good Boys, and I thought that was entertaining. So that's a fun time. And Ready or Not, we just
Yes.
saw, which I thought was actually surprisingly pretty good. Yeah, those are our lists. So I hope that you enjoyed this summer, because we're about to make way for the fall.
Right, yeah, we're getting ready.
Yeah, we're gonna have a fall preview come out soon after this, maybe a couple weeks after, something like that. Until then, you could find our blog at accessnepa.com/take2, the numeral 2. Where can they find you?
I'm on Twitter as TT Rebecca Kivak, and the blog has its own Twitter too, so
Right.
you can check out at Take Two blog.
Right, exactly. You can find me at Duke Mish. It is the dumbest Twitter handle in the world, but
Not as long as mine is. At least yours is to the point.
to the point. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's all we got for you. We'll see you soon, though.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Yeah.